Hey friends, welcome to this video where I'm going to speak about my experience from switching from Android and being a long-time Android user to switching to Apple and to switching to an iPhone 14 Pro Max. I've been using Android phones for many years. Never was much of a fan of Apple, or maybe not that I wasn't a fan, I just didn't feel the need to have any Apple product. I have used them before though, the Macs, the laptops, work purposes. Never really used an iPhone, so I guess why did I decide to try it? Well, I needed a new phone essentially, but I was wanting a much more high-end phone. So highest high-end phone that I ever had was a Xiaomi Mi 8. It was quite a powerful phone, the specs are really good, but yeah, it passed its life. So I've used a lot of Xiaomi phones in the past, so we're quite used to them. And yeah, I never had any problems with them, I really like them. Actually, I had two main requirements that I wanted on a new phone, and that was one, specific video resolution, so filming in specific resolutions, like 4K, 60 frames per second, that sort of stuff. And with that, a higher quality media sort of phone, so good camera, good zoom capabilities, good stabilization was essential for filming. Another requirement was that it needed to have NFC, so tap to pay, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think those were really the two main things that I wanted. The camera was the biggest thing, I think. And yeah, so then I had a look around. I was looking at the high-end Samsung, so the Samsung Ultras. They were more in those sort of price ranges. And then luckily I found someone who was selling a second-hand iPhone, which was still relatively new, so I thought I'd give that a try. I guess let's dive into some of the things. So I thought I'd just give a quick overview of some of the pros that I found, as well as some of the cons, I suppose. And then at the end, we'll look at, should you make the switch? Should you get an iPhone over an Android phone if you've been a long-time Android user? I know there's many videos out there on, different people's experiences. A lot of tech YouTubers, I think, have reviewed, the Apple iPhone and done a comparison. So yeah, I mean, this is not something like that. It's more really just my experience. More so my experience being a very long time Android user and making the switch. So let's look at some of the pros. Naturally, the phone is really good. Really, build quality really good. I'm not really going to kind of review the phone in a sense because I think Apple's reputation speaks for itself. Yeah, some of the things that I really liked was the phone is super fast, super responsive. There's no lag, or it doesn't build up lag over time. I've been using the phone for about a year now. I think now with the latest updates, with the latest iOS updates, there's a lot more customization. The video quality, the camera quality is all really good. The stabilization in the video filming is really exceptional. It's like pretty insane. The zoom is great. This is the Pro Max, so it has the ultra zoom and the three lenses. So I did kind of compare the camera quality to the Samsung Ultras, and I must say I think they're fairly similar. I wouldn't really say that one is really that much better than the other. Whether you were to get either or, I don't think you would have a problem or you'd go wrong with either one. So I guess that's what happens when you're dealing with these sort of high-end models. They all have similar features. I guess to really notice the really small differences, you'd really have to kind of be an above average user of one of these sort of phones, The thing that I really liked and found with the Apple is that, syncing to other devices, syncing to the watch, it's super quick, super easy. Yeah, I've never had a problem where I struggle to sync with things or, sync with certain apps, that sort of stuff. Whereas on Android, I've had sometimes, especially with Samsung, stuff like that. So, but otherwise, I think it's a really good phone. Yeah, naturally, I don't think you can go wrong with Apple's phones. So I thought I'd just touch a bit on the watch as well. This is the Series 10 watch, the 42mm. I mean, I'm coming from a very old Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 to this, and yeah, it's quite a big upgrade. Again, with the watch, it's super fast, super quick, no lag whatsoever. Everything is really responsive. The Samsung Watch 4 had a bit of a lag, but I mean, it is quite old. On the watch, I guess the only thing is that, there's no direct back button, which can be kind of irritating sometimes. Still gets to me at sometimes when there's at a point in an app or somewhere and you're trying to go back, and yeah, the only way to go back in some places is to use the dial button push, and then you don't want to go all the way out, you just want to go one back. So yeah, takes some getting used to. The workout stats, the fitness tracking on it is really good. I think it tracks really well. The only thing I wish it had for running and that sort of thing is the ability to track or show the max speed that you did. That would be quite nice and handy, and I know in Samsung they do it, but I don't know how accurate it is, because yeah, when I compare the Samsung figures that they give there as opposed to say in Strava, it usually differs, and the Strava stats seems to be more accurate. So yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Otherwise, the watch is really good. It's nice that they have the different strap options. The one thing I really noticed wearing this watch compared to wearing the Samsung watches is that Apple Watch is much like 10 times more comfortable than the Samsung watch. Like the Samsung watch, I always, when I wear it, it's like I can feel that I have a watch on. Whereas when I wear the Apple Watch, sometimes I forget that I am actually wearing the watch. It's very comfortable, which is what I like, because that was one thing I didn't like about the Samsung watch. And yeah, sometimes it would just prevent me from actually wearing it because it would feel a little bit bulky, a little bit, yeah, just not too comfortable. Let's look at some of the negative things, or not so negative, but I think just the things that I found challenging or irritating. Naturally, I'm not used to the way that Apple does these things that I'm about to describe, as opposed to the way it's done on Android. But while that is true, I do find that some of them are still not so intuitive. So definitely, I'm not trying to bash it or anything like that, because I do understand that it does take some getting used to, and I do have to give it time, and the more I use it, the more natural it will become. But after using it for some time, I still did find that there were some things which were still, it just seemed more natural and more fluid and easier the way Android does it as opposed to Apple. But yeah, I suppose that can also be very subjective. So it just depends on you and depends on what you're used to, I suppose. So yeah, let's take a look at some of them. The first one is having to use iCloud for everything. Naturally, you don't have to use it, but yeah, the way Apple kind of pushes it to you, it kind of makes it seem like you really have to use it. I still haven't really made full use of it, so luckily I don't really need to back up too much stuff. Any things that I do back up, like maybe videos or whatever, I usually just transfer them to my laptop or a hard drive or whatever the case is. Yeah, it hasn't impacted me too much, which is good. I guess the biggest one is navigating back. So on Apple, you kind of swipe to the left to swipe back, as opposed to having a dedicated back button on your buttons at the bottom of the phone, like most Android phones have. Generally, it's not so bad. I think I've gotten quite used to it and gotten the hang of it. But the problem is that there are a lot of apps where it's not built in. So for example, I know some of the banking apps. Let's say if I were to go into a banking app, select a feature or an account or whatever the case is, and at some point I want to go back, there's no way to use the swipe back as is normal on an Apple phone. You have to use the dedicated arrow or the back button within the app to go back. It can get quite annoying or irritating, because sometimes you're doing something and you're just using maybe you just have one hand free, you're trying to swipe back and nothing's happening, and you have to kind of go up right to the top or wherever that button is to use it. So yeah, maybe it sounds like a little thing, but it really adds up when you use it often, and it doesn't work the way other things work. That's a bit of a bummer, but I think it's really just app dependent, so it differs between apps. I also compared to it on Android. So on Android, you do have the option to either have dedicated back buttons, those dedicated buttons at the bottom of your screen, or you can change it to use the swipe functionality for back as is done on Apple. So I did try that on Android, and I must say the experience on the Android was far better than using it on the Apple. Like swiping back on Android kind of worked all the time, everywhere, as I had expected it to work. It seems to be a shortfall in Apple, so I hope that they can fix that, or I have a feeling it's kind of by design for them. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it will also be a great way, by me explaining these things, is that if anyone's been through the same thing and you have any advice or tips on how to solve these certain things or make the experience better, please do comment below. One other thing that I found is that trying to select text or copy some text or select all text and kind of navigate the cursor when dealing with text, it functions differently to the way it does in Android. And yeah, I don't think it's bad per se. It's just it just takes some getting used to. Like naturally, if I want to select all, I would just long hold and the context menu should come up. But yeah, it doesn't seem to work quite like that on Apple, so a little bit of getting used to. So something else that I didn't like is that when plugging the iPhone into your computer, you can't really just, copy paste or drag and drop files. You have to go through iTunes, or I haven't actually done that in some time. The way I go about it, I suppose you could always use iCloud to transfer files, but the way I do it is that I use another cloud storage provider. It's called pCloud, and I just upload my files to there on the iPhone, and on my laptop I just download them. It's way easier, way less hassle, and as I say, you can't just drag and drop like a USB or a hard drive, which is unfortunate, but I suppose that's how Apple has always been. Even in the days of the iPod, you had to go through iTunes, you couldn't just kind of drag and drop. There's also one other thing which is I find really strange, and I don't know if it's just certain apps or certain things, but like I find that on Apple, say for example I want to download a file from some cloud provider app that I have, even apps like social media apps like TikTok and things, if I want to save the video or download it, normally I'll just click on the three dots or long press it, context menu would show up, and I could just say download to device or save video as or save file as. That's how it works on Android and conventionally, but on the iPhone there's no such option. When I do that, you have to go to like share, and then only once you start to share the file, then you start to see the option there. So like all the download options are all under share. I found kind of odd, but also it's not for everything, it's just predominantly that's the case. So that's something to remember. So there's a couple of other things, but I think they're quite small things. I don't think it's really worth mentioning them. But they have definitely gotten better over time. And I think naturally, as I said before, if you do make the switch, you definitely do need to give yourself some time to transition or get used to the new way of doing things, the way Apple does it. Take that in mind. I guess we come to the question is then, should you make the switch? Is it worthwhile switching from Android to iPhone? I guess there's some scenarios which we can look at. First one is, let's say you have another Apple device, an iPad or a Mac or even a watch. I guess if you do have a watch, then you kind of don't have a choice. You have to get the phone because the watch doesn't really work with any other phones, so kind of stuck there. But in saying that, if you do have another Apple device, then I think it is quite worthwhile getting the phone. They do sync very well. The ecosystem is good. I know that's how they trap you and get you in there. It is very convenient. It is efficient. In that way, they've done really well. It all just works so well and seamlessly. So definitely worthwhile doing that if you have got one of the devices. So then another scenario is that if you do have another phone, so if you have a second, maybe a lower end phone that's Android, you at least always have that option of going back to Android or kind of using both. And if you get irritated with the iPhone, you can always revert and use the Android for a bit while you get used to the Apple's way of doing things. Then it's not so bad. If you have a very specific case of needing something, let's say like in my case of, you want it for the camera or you want it for something specific, or if you just, you just want to switch because of the hype, or, you want to try out Apple, you've heard good things about it and you want to give it a shot. For that, I would really say just play with a friend's phone or something like that just to see how it is. I'd say that's a good idea. But I definitely say that you can find everything that you would want. You can definitely find it in other Android phones. But remember, they must be quite high-end Android phones. So, you must look within the same sort of price range that you would be spending on this phone. Make sure to be looking at the equivalents in the Android or whichever brand you're looking at. If you're looking at that kind of a range of phones, then features will really be quite similar. Most likely you could probably find some that are a little bit cheaper than what you'd pay for an Apple phone. I really think that the camera quality, all that kind of stuff is very similar. You wouldn't really tell the difference between the two, especially for an average user. Even if you're heavily on social media, if you're a heavy media user or like influencer type thing, the phones really work well and features really work well on that end of the spectrum of phones. I hope my experience and my thoughts kind of helped you give perspective if maybe you're thinking about it, or whatever the case is. But if you are, please do comment below, give us your thoughts, share your experiences, share your tips if you have any. I hope they can all be helpful to anyone who's looking to do the same thing. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.